This may not make sense, but how you define success has a lot to do with whether or not you will actually be successful. That's what this episode is all about. I cannot wait to share this one with you. These are things I've never really talked about. I get emotional, we go deep, we go through a lot, but this is all about redefining what success is in order to give you a much more rich life. If that's interesting to you, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you are watching this on our YouTube channel or seeing a clip online or wherever it may be, basically, if there's any visual to how you're listening to this episode right now, clearly you can see we are in Sedona, Arizona. We are here on our team retreat. So we do a team retreat once a year. And last year we went to Telluride, which was unbelievable, amazing. If you've never been to Telluride, absolutely, it's a must. But we are now in Sedona, which is also just as much of a sacred, powerful site to have a team retreat. So we just wrapped up day number one, and now we're filming content and all that good stuff. And so one of the things that we talked about on this episode, or in today's day number one, was like our content process. We want to be so much more intentional of like how to create content, what our message is going to be, what the voice is, what types of content do we want. And if you guys know me, you know, everything for me is always from experience and knowing. Like I very rarely, if any time, will ever teach you something that I've never actually done myself successful. And then even when we do, I'm always letting you know, oh, this is theory, or this is like what I think, or whatever. So it's always very important for us to know, quote unquote, know what we teach. It always has to have experience in it. And so we want to be very intentional with what our content process looks like, because for me, I'm like, I just feel like in our, not the podcast, but like our Instagram content and stuff, I'm like, I want to go to the next level. I want to bring so much more value. I want to go wider with it. I want to build much more of an organic audience, which has never really been a focus. And as we started to go through like, well, Brandon, what sort of content do you want? What sort of content is you? What sort of content do we need to add into your voice and things like that? And I'm always thinking back in my mind, like, well, whatever we do, I'm going to eventually teach to the students. And there was a piece of that content which was really like, I want to teach from my own experience. I want to teach more of me and authentically, who am I? What are my lessons? What have I learned beyond just messaging? And so for me, like my kids and my family, and just even the relationship that I have with my wife have always given me the most beautiful lessons. And so I'm like, I want to talk about a lot of this stuff. And so one of the concepts that we started talking about is redefining what success actually is. And I have 3 lessons that I kind of want to go through and talk about today's podcast on redefining what success is. And I will tell you, like when I got started in business, it was very third dimensional 3D. And when I say 3D, just so you know what 3D is very tangible, what's right in front of us. It's the cars, the houses, the money, like chasing those sorts of things is 3D. And that's very much where I was. Like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to have a Ferrari. I want to have all this stuff. And I want to be very clear and upfront that if you want those things, I am in no way attacking that, because I will be the first to admit I still want a nicer house than the one I'm in right now. But I also, at the same time, still have a lot of gratitude for the one that I have. I also eventually want to have a Ferrari one day. Even my wife texts me today and she's like, I'm manifesting us a Porsche. I missed not having the Jaguar in a sports car. And I'm like, great, we can have that. Let's do it. And I still want those things and I work towards those things. Here's the difference. I was driven by those things. I was attached to those things, meaning my level of happiness, or how I defined whether or not I was successful, was defined on literally whether or not I had like $1 million launch, or my success was defined by literally, do I have the 5,000 square foot dream, dream house, or do I have that Jaguar that I wanted? And then even when I got the things like the Jaguar and stuff like that, what I started to realize is I didn't like the person that I was inside of those things. I started to feel like, like, I don't know if it was that I'm better than someone else, but I definitely felt like more successful than other people when I was in that car. And I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like who I was. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up getting rid of it. And I'm like, I'm not at the level to be able to have this yet and maintain the values that I want to maintain. And I think I'm at that place now where I just live in so much love and so much kindness, and much more than I ever have. Obviously, there's still an evolution that I'm going to need to go through, but I really try to live and just everyone is equal no matter what you have, and I become detached to those things. So again, I still want those. I'm still working towards that dream house. I mean, I'm working towards having the car again and those sorts of things. But the difference is I'm not attached to those. I do not attach success to those things. I do not attach my happiness to those things. I do not attach my worth to those things. And that's the difference. And that's what I want to talk about today, because during that process of starting to see success and gaining some of these things and not recognizing myself and losing myself to these things, I started to realize success shouldn't be about these things. Success should be more about depth. It should be about what's really more important. And there are three lessons that I want to walk through with you to really go through, like, how have I personally redefined success over the years? And I'll be the first to tell you that when I started to redefine what success was, I actually became more successful financially. And when I started to lose a lot of this I guess you can call it superficial, whatever, surface level BS, I became more successful. And not only that, I started to remember more of who I was and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up. So I got my notes here. I want to go through and just walk you through three different lessons of how I've redefined success over the years that have allowed me to become more successful on paper, the financial success, but have actually brought me much more richness in my life, regardless of how much money I made. And that's what this is all about. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. So lesson number one, we've already kind of touched on it, but lesson number one is I had to learn how to become detached to a lot of the 3D things. I didn't want those things to have control over me. I didn't want those things to have control over how I looked at other people. I didn't want them to control how I looked at myself. I wanted to be able to look at myself as someone of value and learn to love myself, whether or not I had those things. So I had to learn to become detached. And what that means is, yeah, I still want those things. Like if I preferred having a beat up 1970, Volvo, whatever, that barely ran, or had a choice to choose between a brand new Mercedes, I'm choosing the brand new Mercedes, right? But my happiness level, my internal state is not dependent on whether or not I have those things. So I started to lose this detachment to a lot of the 3D things that we had going on. Again, I still want those things. I work towards those things, but those aren't my drivers anymore. Those aren't things I focus on day in, day out. Those are the things of like, yeah, I know it'll happen. If I prefer to have that, then over something else, then no big deal. But again, my worth, my love for myself, my value is not attached to those things. My happiness is not attached to those things. And what I started to replace a lot of that with was success was defined more by depth. And for me, what depth means is more of these memories, being present in the moments. I forget what movie it was, but there's a movie where they like take imaginary pictures as like a husband and a wife or a boyfriend and a girlfriend. And they like are when they have or maybe it was The Office. It was The Office. That's what it was, Pam and Jim. And every time there's a really memorable moment of their wedding, they would look at each other and go, and they would just pretend they're taking a picture. But what that was a mental picture of let's remember this specific moment forever. Let's imprint it in our brains forever. And that was something that I've started to do over the last couple of years, is be so present in the moment. Obviously, it's not something I'm doing 100% of the time, but I'm 10 times better than where I was 10 years ago. And remembering those moments with my kids. And when I started to be more present and be more aware of like, you're going through a really amazing memory right now, but your mind is on work. Your mind is on the house. I can bring myself back in and focus on the moment, the love, the happiness, the pure joy that I'm experiencing now in the moment. Success for me stopped being about doing the $1 million launch, and it started being more about like, wow, you're out here on a Tuesday afternoon when 90% of people are at work, and you're out here at the creek in Sedona with your family, with your kids. You're witnessing your kids play in the creek, laughing and having fun. You're witnessing your wife just sitting under a tree, relaxing with nothing on her mind. You're witnessing now in the moment. And guys and gals, that moment, I'm telling you right now, on a Tuesday afternoon, can happen whether you're broke or you're a millionaire. It does not matter. And that's what I'm talking about, is real success is snapping yourself out of the game. It's snapping yourself out of this rat race that the world told you that you need to run, that you need to play in, that you need to go do. You don't have to do that. And I started to realize, like, wow, Brandon, for the last 10 years, even though you've been struggling in the business, you've had so many of these snapshot moments that you've lost because you were so attached to the money and getting out of this and the houses and da-da-da-da-da. But for the last 10 years, you've had a lot of these moments where you are out here on a Wednesday afternoon. You're not constricted to a 9 to 5. You're not, even though you're not, quote unquote, making it yet, you still had a lot of these moments. And I remember the moment when we bought our first house. And it was a really hard time for me because we had finally built up, if you guys know my story, I've been living with my in-laws for 4 years as we built this business. We had no money. We were completely broke. And we had finally moved out on our own. We're renting a house. And we had about $200,000 in the business bank account. And I had never had that much money before. And I was finally at the place for the last 4 to 6 years, because I don't remember the timeline, but last 4 to 6 years where I finally felt comfortable with money, where money and bills weren't the only thing on my mind. They were finally at a place where I'm like, I can live my life without wondering how the bills are going to be paid. This is amazing. And I remember my wife's going like, we need to get out of this house. It's so small. Like, we want to have a family. Everything's falling apart in this house. We're renting. I want to own something. 2019, I remember thinking, I don't want to. I am so stress-free on money right now that I need to enjoy this moment. But for her, she wanted to own our own place. And for me, then the concern was also, it's 2019. It's like the market's the highest it's ever been. Obviously, I had no idea COVID was coming. I had no idea that home prices were about to skyrocket. I was thinking, since 2008, it's been all the way up. It's got to come down at some point. And I remember thinking, I'm going to have to spend $100,000, half of my money, on buying a house. Pull it out of the business, use it to buy the house. And a lot of people might be thinking, well, Brandon, you still have $100,000 left over. Yeah, that's fine and dandy. And I did. But what you don't also realize is, like, in order to have a business where you can save up $200,000 like that, you also have a lot of expenses attached to that. So my thought was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to worry about money. I'm going to have to watch this 100,000 decline. And, I got into a lot of the stress and the worry, and I had a phone call with Mel Abraham. For a lot of you guys, hopefully you guys know, most of you probably know who Mel is. And he said to me one thing, this is like the shift of everything. And he said to me, he's like, are you more concerned about the money, or are you focused on the memories? I'm like, what are you talking about, Mel? Because we had to do we didn't have a full 20% on the house that we bought. So I know there was going to be that insurance PMI and all that stuff. And I was like, Mel, this is probably a bad financial decision, right? I wanted Mel on my side. And he said, what kind of memories are you going to create? Like waking up on Christmas, watching your kids walk down the house, a house that you own, your wife is happier. What sort of memories are you going to create? And he's like, make the decision from there. He's like, you're not making a stupid financial decision. You're not wasting and spending all of your money on this house. You're spending half of it. He's like, so what are the memories? And the memories that I knew I would create in that house started to outweigh the money. And that was my first lesson in what real success actually is. It was like, wow, okay, I don't have to live in a reality where it is going to be stressful. I'm living in a reality where I'm like, I get to have snapshot moments for years to come because I get to watch my wife be happier. I get to witness my kids being happier. I get to look and walk into a house that I bought with my money that I earned, not from a job, but from my own creation. And it was a beautiful, magical thing. And I started to look at it like, this is what real success is. Was it a mansion? No. It was all original from like 1990. It was totally out of date. We started to redo a lot of the stuff in the house that we wanted updated. It was this beautiful project that my wife and I got to do. And what I started to realize is like, that is what real success is. It's like one step at a time, really appreciating what you're doing, spending and being present in the moment with your family, with your friends, with your whatever loved ones. And then I started to realize like, wow, every time I chased money, I always made less. And it was this big aha moment. I look back in my life and like every time that I did a launch and I was just in it for the money, it was like, okay, this is how much money we're going to make. There's no affiliate payouts on this one. We're going to have low ad spend, but we're going to do all this money. They would bomb every single time. When my intention was not in the right place, it bombed every single time. And that moment, I should probably call Mel and tell him this because I don't think he understands I hope maybe he listens, I don't know. But I don't think he understands that moment, that conversation was the trajectory, to set the trajectory of me really embracing and being so present and chasing not the money and not the tangible 3D success, but when I break out of the system, when I break out of the game, when I break out of the 9-to-5, whether you have money or not, what are the memories that are created? What are the moments that you will have that 90% of people will never have? And anytime I resorted back to the old way of thinking, which again, I did a lot of times over the years, it always backfired on me. And even today in the team retreat, like we've been in the 2 million range, 2 to 2.5 range for the last like 3 years or so. And I started looking at because next year I told the team, I'm like, look, we've been at this level. We've all been really comfortable, but I'm done with that. Like we're going to the next level. We want to go to 5 million next year. And before we came to the team retreat, I started to ask myself, like, why do you want to go to 5 million? Is it because you want nicer things or is it because of something else? And I said, honestly, like the number one driver is I want to impact more people and I want to be able to give my team more things. And that's really the incentive for me to want to grow right now is like, I want to give them more raises, more bonuses. I want to be able to offer benefits and more things that we just can't simply do at this stage. And if we stay where we're at, which is really comfortable, it'll never get to a point where we can't afford that. And that's fine if we want to stay there, but I'm like, I want more for them. I want more for the company. I want to impact more people, We also have a lot of friends who do a lot of big things in the space, and I see how many people they impact on a year versus where we're at. And we're still, again, I'm not complaining or ungrateful for it, but I'm like, I just want to help more people. Even when we're going through the content, I'm like, I want to do like acts of kindness and stuff. Why don't we incorporate that into the brand? I want to let's help people. Let's again, redefine what success is. Success is seeing someone who can't afford groceries and being able to give them $100, that is what success, and not have to worry about spending those moments with your family. That's what success is really about. And so that actually leads us to number 2, which talks really about goals. And for me, for a lot of years, success meant like working towards and achieving a certain goal. And what I started to realize is when you get way too focused on your personal life or even in business, working towards a certain goal, you actually miss the real moments. You miss the real gold. And it goes back to the cliche, like, it's not about the destination, man. It's about the journey. But it really is. And that's what I started to realize is there's a last time for everything. And so I look back, and the other saying is like, you never know you're in the good times until you're not in the good times anymore. And I look back at building this business. And one of the things that I was telling the team, I'm like, one of the reasons why we saw so much growth and we were so successful and we just continue to grow and grow and grow is because we constantly had fun all the time. It wasn't like a typical like startup or corporation where you're just like working and you're grinding yourself and all that stuff. It was like, we just had fun, man. It was awesome. And so I started to realize is like when we're so focused on hitting a goal and hitting a goal and hitting a goal and hitting a goal, because that's where we were back then. But at the same time, we had fun. But there was a quote that really landed with me not too long ago. It said, there's a last time for everything. And I look back at like this journey of building the Video 4X and all of these things that we did and now new generation mastery and stuff. And there was a lot of fun. Like we used to play Catan all the time, which is a card game, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. But we would do that all the time as a team, and it was so much fun. It was like, let's work hard so we can go play Catan. And we like loved it, right? We do it on team retreats and team trips and stuff like that. But it never struck me in the moment of like, this could be the last time you with this group of people are playing Catan. And when you have that sort of perspective as you go through things in your life, it forces you to be way more present, because you're like, what if this is the last time that I have this moment? What if this is the last time, like even working with Taylor, who is like a little sister to me. Like we started, she came on with Video 4X, we built this thing out to what it is today. And like there was the last time with working with Taylor and doing that sort of things. And again, when you get so wrapped up in all of this stuff, all of these goals, you lose these sort of moments. And even now in this podcast, Matt just walked out and readjusted some stuff. And I'm like, there's probably my last time I'm going to work with Matt. You know, like now as I record this podcast, literally 5 seconds ago, as I was talking to you guys, I had that moment going on in my head. Like, here he is. There's Matt. Enjoy this moment. You know, like being so present in the moment, you remember everything. And remember that nothing is going to be forever. And that also includes the pain and the suffering. So the things that you're going through, things that are hard and tough and that you don't want to go through, the things that are molding you into the person you need to be, those won't last also. So yes, the good won't last forever. The bad won't last forever. None of it lasts forever. There's always going to be a good. There's always going to be a bad. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be wins. There's always going to be success. None of it lasts forever. But be present to the moment. And what you start to do is you just appreciate it so much. And I remember hearing this, and just even as as someone with a family, I remember hearing this comment from the perspective of being a parent. There's going to be a last time you pick up your kid. And there's going to be a last time you put him down, and you're going to put him down for the last time. And you will never pick him up again for the rest of your life. And I remember thinking, man, my son's 10. I missed it. I missed that moment. I missed the last time that I held my son. Now it's making me really emotional. And I remember thinking that, going like, if I just had one more chance, if I just had like one more opportunity to pick him up, I'd remember that forever. And moving here to like Flagstaff in Arizona, it's been tough, and we moved here. We had him in one school. We switched him to another one. So it was hard. He like 3 schools in 1 year. And he had a really hard time one day. He came home and asked me to pick him up. And I was like, oh my God, I get one more shot. And I remember picking him up, and I remember where I was. I remember everything. I'll remember to the day I die. Where he was, where I was. I remember holding him, my 10-year-old son, going like, this probably is the last time you'll ever hold him. And just really living in the depth of that love and connection. But had I not learned that lesson, that moment would have been completely lost, and I would have lived the rest of my life, never knowing what was the moment that I picked my son up for the last time. And these moments are lasting every single day, or happening every single day. Every single day, these moments are happening. And I was like, this is the value of being present. The value in being present is that you can remember all of this stuff, experience all of that stuff. Not only because I was aware of it, did I get to remember that moment for the rest of my life, but I got to experience that moment to a level that I wouldn't have been able to experience it had I not been aware of this, had I not been present to it. And to me, that's what success is. It's also just working on yourself to be so much more present, that you're not so focused on where am I going? I don't have this, but you're just remembering these moments that aren't going to last forever. And the third and final lesson that I want to leave you guys with of redefining success is that it's not about the money. And yes, I hear you. For those of you who are like, well, it's easy for you to say, Brandon, you have X, Y, and Z and blah, 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 and da, 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 da. I hear you. I remember being broke. I remember worrying about the bills. I remember doing it for years. I remember thinking $5,000 was like $1 million. I remember those days. So it's not lost on me at all, 0%. But having money and a lot less concerns, what I've also realized is it's not about the money. It's about what the money allows you to do. And understanding this has also helped me with lesson number 1 is becoming detached from the money and more focus on what can I do with the money, what impact can I make, all of those sorts of things. So being able to sit with my kids at the creek on a Tuesday, not having to worry about bills, being fully present, that's a moment. Just recently, my kids moved to another school. My son loves playing gaga ball, which those you parents out there, probably your kids play the same thing. And the school didn't have a gaga ball pit, so he's kind of walking around aimlessly, like not sure what to do. And we're like, well, let's donate a gaga ball pit to the school. So we buy this gaga ball pit for the school so that our son could go play gaga ball and meet the other kids and all of that stuff. Bought him the pit and sent it to the school. And the principal comes up and is like, thank you so much. And da-da-da-da-da. And he goes, but we don't have anyone to set it up. And I was like, okay, I'll set it up. And he goes, well, we can't have you do it on the weekend because school's closed and all stuff. And I said, it's fine. I'll do it on a Friday. No calls on this Friday. And I went there and I just remember thinking, because we live in Flagstaff, it's a mountain town right in the middle of the forest or around the forest. You can see trees all over. Drinking my coffee, listening to music, took my shoes off, totally grounded into the feet directly into the grass, totally grounded and going like, this is such a beautiful moment. Like, how awesome is this? No kids, no one's bugging me. I'm just like having my coffee, listening to music, building this gaga ball pit. But I was like, this is what success is. It's like being able to donate a gaga ball pit and then set it up during the week and have zero concerns about it. I'm like, that's what success really is. It's not about all this other stuff, right? It's about moments like that. And I love that moment because I posted on social, on Instagram, and one of our students and one of my friends, Tia. So Tia, if you're listening, shout out to you. Sent me a message and because what happened was my kids came out on recess and I was still setting up the gaga ball pit. So they came over and with all their friends, they're like, yeah, that's my dad. And he set up the gaga ball pit, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I hope you realize that your kids will remember that for the rest of their life. Your kids will remember the day their dad set up the gaga ball pit at the school for the rest of their lives. And I was like, you know what? I never even realized that. I was just doing it because I could, and it was awesome that I could do it during the week. And that's what success was. But then creating those memories for them was really amazing. And, the last and final message that I will sort of leave you guys with is this kind of related to number 3, but we're going to kind of go in a different direction with it, is that real success is also just working on yourself. It's growing yourself, getting yourself to a place where internally you're good, you're happy, you're whatever, without the need of the external world to look a certain way. And this means being free. This means getting rid of fears, concerns, things that you worry about. Money obviously makes that a lot easier. But the thing is when I started to be able to shed those things, I made more money. And that's what people don't understand is like, well, Brian, when you finally made it, you made a lot of money in a short period of time. It's like, yeah, because I was working on myself. Because I was working on how do I get rid of these fears, or how do I do this anyways, or how to get rid of these concerns, and how do I not let the external world influence my internal? And then when I didn't let the external influence the internal, I started to show up differently. I started to make better decisions. I started to become more powerful. I started to do what I needed to do in order to see the results. And I don't want that to be lost on you, is that success also means shifting. It means changing. It means being more powerful. It means breaking out of the game, right? And so just to kind of recap 3 very short lessons that I've learned in this whole journey is, number 1, success means being present and being free, enjoying those moments. It means playing your game, not someone else's. A lot of the reasons why we're so uptight or stressed out or what, we're playing someone else's game. We're playing the game that we were told to play. And again, it doesn't really have a lot to do with money. If your lifestyle was $50,000 a year, but you made $70,000 a year on some website that you set up, you won. You don't have to work and profiting 20 grand a year. You don't need to be a millionaire to have the freedom, to have the peace of mind. You don't need all of that stuff. But sometimes we've been told we need to have this and keeping up with the Joneses and da-da-da-da-da-da, so nothing is ever enough. This is why working on yourself is so important. It's about understanding those precious moments. If I never get the dream house and the Ferrari, I'm good. I'm good, man. happy most of the time because I'm still human. Most of the time I'm happy. And the last and final one is being the person who's aware and free in the mind to see the beauty all around you. Doesn't matter how much money you make, guys. If you're not free in the mind, you miss the beauty that life has to offer. And there are moments every day that offer a lot of beauty. So hopefully this episode left you with a lot to think about. These are some of the most beautiful lessons I've learned. And to me, this is what success really is. Hope you enjoyed this one.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.